it's always lovely to have you back learning about community medicine. Welcome to this mega 5-star topic called as infectious disease epidemiology. Beta, this is one topic. If you are a UG student, make sure that you study this topic right in the start, somewhere in the start of understanding community medicine. And if in case you are a PG aspirant, you are aspiring for your next exam or NEET exam, whatever exam you're giving, this topic is again 5-star because so many questions come from this. There are so many things for me to discuss. Beta, this whole topic of infectious disease epidemiology has been divided into 3 broad topics, 3 broad video modules. In the first module, we are going to talk about some of the basic definitions and chain of transmission. Second module is agent determinants, like what are infectivity, pathogenicity, immunogenicity, and what are host determinants. What do you mean by case, subclinical case, what is index case, primary case, attack rates, carriers. And in last section, infectious disease epidemiology module number 3, you are going to learn about very important. This is one of the most important areas, and host determinants are very high risk areas for your MCQ exams. So modes of transmission, different vector-borne, vehicle-borne, direct mode, indirect mode, and time periods in infectious disease epidemiology, what is generation time, incubation period, and so on, things about PP. So let us get on and talk about the first topic, that is infectious disease epidemiology part 1. Before I step into the details of the infectious disease epidemiology topics, let us have a quick discussion about 5-6 important definitions. The first definition is like very super duper easy topic. What is the difference between infection, infestation, and contamination? Beta, infection means just the entry. It means the entry and development of an agent, usually microorganism, of an agent, that is the microorganism in the body. So it's something like in the body, that is what is infection. The agent will enter into the body and multiply. What do you mean by infestation? Infestation is just the presence. It is presence of an arthropod vector on the body or clothes or anything. So the person may be infested with some ticks or mites, but the person may be infected with rickettsial disease. Are we getting it? So infection is something that the entry of the organism and which causes sign and symptoms. It may or may not cause sign and symptom, but the infectious agent is inside the body. The focus is on the word in the body, on the body. What do you mean by contamination? Contamination is same thing. Contamination is presence of an infection. It could be infection or it could be vector. It is presence of an infective agent, or it could be the vector or arthropod on any surface, or inanimate or non-living things. That is what is contamination. So our hands are contaminated with some infection agent, or it could be something. So my clothes are contaminated. That means that is the presence of an infectious agent. This is presence. That is infection on a surface or any inanimate, like maybe this phone, this is contaminated. Right? So contamination means the presence. Definition number 2. What do you mean by infectious disease, contagious disease, and communicable disease? Infectious disease is any disease which happens because of, which is due to an infectious agent, or it has infectious etiology. It has infectious agent or etiology. There are common sense, like we have cholera, we have tuberculosis, we have malaria. All these are infectious disease, but some non-communicable may also be infectious. For example, you have rheumatic fever. You have some cancers, that is the cervical cancer. So cervical cancer, CA cervix, could be infectious in origin. We could also have infective endocarditis, some of the colitis. All these are infectious disease. Even peptic ulcer disease peptic ulcer disease, all are infectious diseases. What is contagious disease? Contagious disease is any disease which can be transmitted by direct touch. So if there is direct touch, it is a contagious disease transmitted by direct touch. Example for this direct touch, you can have so many example, all sorts of dermatitis, all sorts of, like example another could be scabies. All are transmissible via touch. What do you mean by communicable disease? Communicable disease is any disease which may transmit. A person with rheumatic fever will probably not make another person rheumatic fever, right? A person who has peptic ulcer disease would probably not make another person as the peptic ulcer disease. So, but the communicable disease is that a person with tuberculosis may cause a lot of many other patients with tuberculosis. So, any disease which may transmit via any mode of transmission, which we are going to study later on in the topic. That is what is a communicable disease. There's no list, like it's the endless list we have for communicable diseases. Another set of definitions that you can know for your exam is about the opportunistic infection, nosocomial infection, iatrogenic infection, and exotic diseases or exotic infection. What do you mean by opportunistic infection? There are thousands of microorganisms in this ecosystem. You have so many things. We don't get all the diseases all the time. But there are some people whose immune status is not so capable enough to protect them from the diseases. So opportunistic infections are those infections which may happen in case of any immunodeficiency or immunosuppression. So in case there is any drug which you are taking for immunosuppression, or in case the person's immune status, the T cells or the B cells, they are not competent enough to make the immunoglobulins or the chemicals that you have in your blood to protect from infection, that is beta called as opportunistic infection. Examples could be too many of opportunistic infections. That is, for example, in case of HIV, you have what all opportunistic infection? You have a list. You have toxoplasmosis, we have CMV retinitis, we have PCP, that is pneumocystis carinii or Gerovicii pneumonias. You have so many list of opportunistic infection. In HIV, TB is also one of the most common opportunistic infection that we have. What do you mean by beta nosocomial infection? Nosocomial infection is a hospital-acquired infection. Nosocomial infection means a hospital-acquired infection. What do you mean by hospital-acquired infection? A person went to the hospital and he went for some other problem and he got a new problem over there. So hospital-acquired infections by definition are those infections which arise as new infections after 48 hours of admission. So after having a 48 hour of admission, any new infection which may arise is probably labeled as a nosocomial infection. Most common MCQs now beta, most common nosocomial infection, that is a Staph aureus. What is the most common spread? Like what is the most common transmission mode for nosocomial infection? The most common mode of transmission. MOT stands for mode of transmission. So what is the most common mode of transmission? That is by unclean hands. That is the most common thing which is responsible for having nosocomial infection. Another is what is the most common infection which happens, like what is the most common infectious disease which may happen. It is a nosocomial related urinary tract infection. Why does UTI happen as the most common? Why? Because of retained catheters. So catheter-induced retained catheters or catheter-induced infections they can actually lead to any type of infection. UTI is just one of the most common. It could lead to septicemias, it could lead to pneumonias. A lot of infections may happen because of retained catheters, and they all happen because of the mode of transmission is unclean hand. What is the most common organism over here, bache? Please note, hospital-acquired. HAI stands for hospital-acquired infections, and the most common is staph infection. Staph infection. Next is, what is this iatrogenic infections? Beta, iatrogenic are diseases, not only infections. They could be iatrogenic infections, they could be iatrogenic diseases. So they are all group of diseases which are usually physician induced or the doctor induced, or basically they are pertaining to the health facility due to the procedures conducting in the health facility. So iatrogenic infections are due to procedures, which could be medical procedure or a surgical procedure related to, due to the procedures in the health facility. So they could be due to hospital admissions, they could be without the hospital admissions. So mind you, it's only simple understanding is doctor induced or physician induced. They could be like because a person was getting some operative technique, and because of that operation there could be infection, there could be some other complications of that surgery, there could be drug reactions. So everything is clubbed under iatrogenic. Iatrogenic is not that every time the doctor is making a mistake. It could be because of medical negligence. So the reasons for iatrogenic infections may be due to medical negligence. Yes, I agree, negligence. But they may also be because of procedural iatrogenic infections. In iatrogenic diseases, procedural. They may also be adverse reactions. They may also be side effects. So these are all clubbed under the iatrogenic diseases. So what are iatrogenic diseases? Which are physician induced or which are related to the health facility. Example could be all sorts of infections. Yes, I do agree. Negligence or unclean hands or not washing the hands, these are also clubbed under the iatrogenic infections. What do you mean by exotic? Next is, what do you mean by exotic disease? Exotic is something like you have apples made from Switzerland. So it's an exotic fruit in India, right? So what is exotic? Exotic means anything which is not found locally. That is the English meaning. Exotic means not found locally. So if any disease or any infection is not found locally, that is exotic. Example for this is, favorite example, rabies in United Kingdom. Rabies in United Kingdom is exotic. They don't have the rabies virus. Yellow fever disease in India is exotic. So there are many infections which are not found in an area, and the infection, in case, even if one case is there, then the whole population is susceptible. It's a very devastating problem. So that is what do you mean by exotic. Exotic diseases are of particular importance from international health regulation point of view, because if a country does not have a disease, it is imperative of understanding, it's common understanding, it is imperative that the World Health Organization is supposed to take care that the infection does not spread to that particular country. So that is the reason that yellow fever is under notifiable disease under the international health regulations. International health regulations, the yellow fever disease is a notifiable disease. Another set number 4 of the basic definitions that you would like to remember for your exam is, what is the difference between zoonotic infection or zoonosis, epizootic, enzootic, and eperontic. Zoonosis is any disease which is arising due to or related to animals. Very briefly, what is the common example that you would like to remember for zoonotic infections? Zoonotic infections, the list is endless. Zoonotic disease could be like rabies, it could be brucellosis. Zoonotic disease could be like, we can have leptospirosis. You have so many diseases which are zoonotic, which are of animal origin. MCQ, beta, what you need to remember, MCQ wala, what they will ask you is, how many types or different types of zoonosis do we know? The zoonosis based on the origin can be of 3 types. We can have zooanthroponosis, or we can have anthropozoonosis. It took me quite a while to understand these words. So zooanthroponosis, anthropozoonosis, and you have another one that is called as amphizoonosis. What do you mean by zooanthroponosis, amphizoonosis? What do you mean by zooanthroponosis, beta? I know it's 100 times I do it. Every time we get confused. I have a small trick for us, that zoo, when I write a letter to anyone, what is the first thing you're going to write? You're going to write the to. So this is to and this is from. This is to and this is from. Okay, so it's very simple. Now, so zoanthroponosis, it goes from whom? It is from the anthropo. Who's anthropo? It is from humans. To the whom? To the zoo. Zoo means animal. So if a disease spread from humans to the animals, that is called as zoanthroponosis. And ulta, if it happens the vice versa, that is from the animals. That is from the animals. If it goes to the anthropo, who's anthropo? That is the humans. So if it goes from animal to human, that is anthropozoonotic infection. And common sense, if it is from animal to human, or it is from human to animal, if it is like both sides, it's an amphizoonotic infection. So very frequently you have many infections which are amphizoonotic. For example, like the staph infections, or we may even have the streptococcal infection. Any type of infection coming from human to the animal or animal to human, that is called as amphizoonosis. This is what is MCQ beta. What is the perfect example of zoanthroponosis? That is going from human to the animal. What are the diseases which poor animals they get from we humans? What are the diseases which animal will get from us? That is, you can remember as tuberculosis, cattle tuberculosis. It's a perfect example of zoanthroponosis. And from animal to human, you have so many diseases. Perfect example is rabies. So these are like Japanese encephalitis, you have yellow fever, you have so many diseases which go from animals to the humans. You have COVID-19, you have so many diseases which are anthropozoonotic infections. And amphizoonosis is like we give to animal share with us. That is what is amphizoonosis. So that was about the zoonotic. Another type of classification of zoonotic infection. So one beta zoonotic infection could be based on the source of the animal, like source of the infection. It could be anthropozoonosis or zooanthroponotic or anthropozoonotic. So one was regarding the zoonotic source. Another type could be the zoonotic transmission. Zoonotic transmission. The detail we have already discussed in the chapter in rabies and zoonosis, but just to enlist over here, for details go to the rabies lecture and have a look at the zoonotic infections. But just to tell you over here, just to enumerate, the zoonotic infection transmission could be a direct zoonosis. It could have a direct zoonosis, which is like direct by the bite of the animal, rabies. It could be cyclozoonotic transmission, cyclozoonosis, where the animal is there, they give to another animal is involved, and then it comes to human. So from animal to another animal, if there are two or more animals, animal means the vertebrae which are involved. They are involved, that is called as a cyclozoonotic infection. Another type of infection that you will study over there is metazoonotic infection. Metazoonotic infection. What is a metazoonotic? Where two or more any animal or non-vertebrate host could be there, or they could involve like anything, metazoonotic. So they'll involve two or more animal, out of which it could be a non-vertebrate host also. So if they are involving like animal is there, then the tick is there, and then the human is there, that is a metazoonotic. Another type of zoonotic infection could be the saprozoonosis, saprozoonotic infections. What do you mean by the saprozoonotic infections? Sapro means anything which is not animal. So anything which is the species now entirely is different, or the kingdom is different. Saprozoonotic infection is where there is animal source plus there is non-animal source. So one is animal sources, that is direct zoonosis, animal and animal, that is cyclozoonosis, animal and non-vertebrate or tick or arthropod or crustacea, that is actually the metazoonotic, and animal and non-animal source, plant, it could be soil, it could be mycosis, many things happen from the plants, right? So that is all is saprozoonotic infection. You have many examples like mycosis, which can happen. It is a saprozoonotic infection. So these are some of the just a brief introduction about the zoonotic infections. For details on this, we have done it in rabies lecture. What do you mean by epizootic? Any zoonosis, any infection which has epidemic levels, levels in animals. In animals, perfect example for epidemic level in animals is plague. Plague may be a zoonotic disease and it may reach a epidemic level. What is enzoonotic? Enzoonotic has endemic levels. It has always persistent presence, endemic levels in animals. In animals, example for this is any staph infections. We can have worm infections, staph infections. They are enzoonotic diseases. Aprontic means diseases of the birds. So diseases which originate from birds. That is what is ornithosis, right? Aprontic, birds, and with epidemic levels in the birds. Example for this could be psittacosis. So you can have zoonotic infection, epizootic, enzootic, aprontic, and ornithosis. So actually ornithosis is disease which is originating from the birds. Aprontic would be disease which has the epidemic level in the birds. Another type of definition that you would like to know is the set number 5. Let us talk about the basic definitions. What do you mean by, very important. This is in fact a 4 by 5 star MCQ. So this is for the first time, but I am telling you in this video module, this is one MCQ which can be asked. What do you mean by sporadic, endemic, epidemic, and pandemic? Pandemic, I don't think I even need to talk to you because we all have suffered so much from the COVID-19 pandemic. Everybody knows about the definition of pandemic. Anyways, for your MCQ exams, but let's take it on and let's see what do you mean by sporadic. Sporadic means scattered. Sporadic means scattered cases. Endemic, it is persistently present. It is persistent presence of disease in an area is called as endemic. It is persistent present. There are so many diseases which are persistently present. You have typhoid, you have hepatitis, you have diarrhea, you have pneumonias, you have community acquired pneumonias. We have so many. The list is endless for endemic diseases in India. So persistent presence of disease in an area, in a defined area, that is what is endemic. So the answer could be like typhoid. You can write down hepatitis. You can write down soil transmitted helminthic infections, STH. STH stands for soil transmitted helminthic infections, and so on. So many infections are there. What do you mean by sporadic? What is the example of sporadic disease? Sporadic disease like scattered, ikka dukka, one here, one there. Somewhere you get anthrax, somewhere you don't. You get tetanus from somewhere. We get anthrax cases. We don't jump around and say that, wow, we got diarrhea. Diarrhea case you will see every day in the OPD, that is endemic. So if you see anthrax cases, if you see tetanus cases, that is what you get scattered cases. Epidemic. Epidemic means something which bursts. So what is the difference between epidemic and outbreak? We are going to discuss, but at the first level, what do you mean by epidemic? Epidemic means it could be sudden or gradual. It could be sudden or gradual. Whatever. So depends on what timeline we are talking. But there is a definite, it could be sudden or gradual, but with a definite rise in the number of cases in an area. It is a sudden rise in number of cases in an area which is not normal, which is beyond the normal frequency, that is what is epidemic. But my question to you is, let us say normally in an area there were 30 cases of diarrhea which happened in month of maybe May, and in June also there were 30 cases. In June also there were 30 cases of diarrhea, and maybe in July we had maybe 28 cases of diarrhea. In August, let us say we have 34 cases of diarrhea. I don't know what happened. In September, now we have 50 cases of diarrhea. Will you label this 50 as epidemic? Yes or no? What do you want to say? Maybe some of you might be thinking that maybe, yes, this is epidemic, it is 50 cases. Let us say that I change this number to 36. Will you still say it is epidemic? Is it sudden rise in number of cases? Yes. Is it beyond the normal frequency? When do you say a normal frequency? That's what I wanted you to understand, that when do you say a epidemic? It cannot be dependent on your sweet will. You might be a very strict person and you say that anything which is more than 35 is epidemic. Or you might be lenient that, okay, chalta hai, more than 40 is also epidemic, more than 50 is also epidemic, or maybe even till the disease does not cross 80, I won't call it epidemic. So it depends on your sweet will. In scientific world, it doesn't happen like that. So what is epidemic? Please write down the definition. What do you mean by epidemic? Classic 5 by 5 star MCQ topic. Classic definition of epidemic is, it is a sudden or a gradual rise in the number of cases, which is, now comes the important MCQ, which is more than 80% of expected frequency, or which is more than plus 2 standard deviations. We can statistically find it out that what is the standard deviation. SD beta stands for the standard deviation. So when a disease will cross the normal boundaries, when do you say the normal? That is within plus minus 2 standard deviation. Please just very quickly have a look at the biostats video. You'll probably understand when we talk about the normal distribution curves, you'll understand that what do we mean by the normal distributions or the normal systems. So any disease which is beyond more than 2 standard deviations, or which is more than 80% of the expected frequency, that is technically called as epidemic. So what is epidemic? Rise in number of cases which is more than 80% of the normal frequency, or which is more than 2 standard deviations. You cannot afford to forget this. Next in line, how do you differentiate between epidemic and outbreak? Usually no MCQ on this beta. Outbreak is at a smaller area or in a regional setup, or in a defined area, we have outbreaks. We say that there is outbreak of scrub typhus in some district. We don't say epidemic. Epidemic usually is for broader areas where there is no boundaries actually. So if a thing is bounded by something, that is usually labeled as outbreak. So outbreak is nothing but a small bacha of the epidemic. What do you mean by pandemic? Pandemic. When do you say pandemic? Pandemic, will you say that when a disease will cross countries? Answer is no. If a disease goes from Bhutan to Nepal or from Indonesia to Myanmar, will you call that as pandemic? Answer is no. So please note that when do you say a disease as pandemic? Pandemic is when a disease crosses to WHO regions, or there are 7 waters in the world, or when a disease crosses a large water body, that is what is the oceans we have. So, or when it crosses continents, that is actually labeled as a pandemic. But however, if you better get one MCQ like what is the best definition of pandemic, when a disease will cross to WHO regions. In the world, how many WHO regions are there in the world? Beta, please note there are 6 WHO regions. There are 6 WHO regions, as you can see on the map over here. You have, first is the region of Americas, then you have is the region of the Africas, then is the Eastern Mediterranean region. This is the Eastern Mediterranean region, and then you have is the green color, that is our color, that is the Southeast Asian region, SEAR, Southeast Asian region, and then you have is the West Pacific region, and then you have is the purple colored one, that is the European region, European and allied countries. So there are 6 regions we have. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So second one is for Africa. First is for the America. So it contains all the America. It contains the North America, South America, United States, and Canada. So Greenland is a part of the European system. So these are the 6 regions. The headquarters, I think we have done it in International Health Regulations chapter, where we talked about international health. Just for your sake, the headquarters of region of Americas is in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. That is in America. In Africa, it is in Brazzaville, Congo. Eastern Mediterranean is in Cairo, that is in Egypt. So when a disease will go from Egypt to Congo, or from the African region to the Eastern Mediterranean, so if a disease has crossed this boundary, it may be labeled as pandemic depending on the disease potential. So Southeast Asia region, what is the headquarters? It is in New Delhi. It is in New Delhi, that is in India. West Pacific region has its headquarter where? It is West Pacific has the headquarter in Manila. Manila, that is in Philippines. And then you have the European headquarters, that is in Copenhagen, Denmark. So these are the 6 WHO regions, and when a disease will cross the WHO regions, the headquarters are listed here, but whenever the disease will cross the WHO regions, then we label this disease as pandemic. So when it crosses the WHO regions, what are the diseases which are under the pandemic notification system? These are the diseases which are under the IHR. IHR stands for the International Health Regulations. So what are the diseases? This can be asked in your exam, beta. This is a 3 by 5 star MCQ topic. The International Health Regulation are for CYPIP, that is CYPIP, and then C again, that's the new C. You have the COVID-19, right? So you have the COVID-19. So the diseases which are under international health monitoring for pandemic alerts, that is the cholera. They have pandemic potential, that is yellow fever. Any disease occurring out of these have to be reported to WHO. So cholera, yellow fever, plague, influenza, and you have poliomyelitis. We have the poliomyelitis. These are the diseases which are under the international health regulations. You cannot afford to forget the CYPIP and another C, which is the recent added disease, which is under the pandemic alert. So that is what is the definition between sporadic, epidemic, endemic, and pandemic. And very important, I would like you to refer the chapter on descriptive epidemiology also, where we discussed the different types of epidemic. We can have single exposure, point source, multiple exposures, point source. We can have propagated epidemics, a lot of different types of short-term fluctuations that we see. You need to go to the chapter on epidemiology to learn more about epidemics, different types of epidemic. Beta, these can be asked in your exam. Next is, what is the chain of transmission? The chain of transmission, what do you mean by this chain of transmission? See, bache, I think when you were very small, when you were kids, someone in the first year used to come and draw on the board, agent, host, environment, and you used to throw chalk at them. Why is somebody teaching me agent, host, environment? I hope you have understood about the utility of agent, host, environment in the chapter where I discussed about the disease causation and concept of health and disease. So agent, host, environment is the community medicine. It is the foundation. The problem is that this agent is there, the host is there, the environment is there. Let us leave aside the environment, right? It's a big thing. God made this environment. Talk about the agent and host. How will the agent enter the host? For the agent host to be there, interaction to be there, you need a source. Are we getting it? The source is there. So now the understanding which I want to build you is that agent will give to the host only via a source is there, or there is some case is there, or there is a reservoir. Something has to be there which is bringing the agent to the host. Agent, the microorganism staff cannot walk and come to us. So now the source is a problem. Now I'm trying to complicate the story of agent, host, environment. There is a agent, source, or reservoir and host now. So MCQ over here, understanding over here, I would like to bring is that the source is not so simple. For the source also, the agent will have some portal of entry to the source, and then there is a portal of exit. portal of exit from the source also. And then the host also should have a probable portal of entry. So there are so many things now which are happening. In very simple words, I talk to you agent, host, environment. In the agent host interaction, there is a agent, then there is involvement of the source, there is involvement of the reservoir, there is a vector, there is something which is carrying the infection and which goes to the host. Within the source, there has to be portal of entry, portal of exit, and for the host, there has to be portal. So the chain of transmission actually looks something like this. From the agent to the host, just look at the screen. From the agent to the host, it's not so simple rasta. The infection does not go from here like this. It doesn't happen like that so simply. This is what is the agent host environment triangle. You have the agent, you have the host, you have environment. But this agent to host has a chain which is linked. So there has to be a reservoir, bache. There has to be a portal of exit of that reservoir. There has to be a mode of transmission. There will be a portal of entry of that particular infectious agent. And then it is applicable to enter into the host. Are we getting it? It's a very simple phenomena. But the concept I wanted to bring over here is a new concept. That is what is called as the chain of transmission. If you understand this chain of transmission, the whole understanding of my community medicine actually rests on this understanding of the chain of transmission. So we want that the agent should not go to the host. That's what is the ultimate thing, because if the host gets the agent, then the disease is there. So that is what is the essence of preventive medicine. Preventive medicine basically talks that the agent should be separate, host should be separate. We don't want diseases. So how to prevent it? Either you stop the source, which you cannot do, or you stop their portal of exit, or you stop the mode of transmission or the portal of entry or the susceptible host. So technically, I want to say that to stop a disease, you remember I already talked to you, there is agent, host, environment. And you remember in concept of disease and concept of prevention, I told that the agent, you pull back the agent, you pull back the host, you pull back the environment. And by the process of pulling back agent, host, environment, you are going to control or eliminate or eradicate the disease. How are you going to pull back the agent or pull back the host? How do you pull them back? You pull them back by blocking this chain of transmission. You open this chain of transmission. Either you cut here, or you cut at the mode of transmission, or you cut at the portal of entry. Am I clear? You need to, for your MCQ exams, if you are a PG aspirant, you need to remember these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and of course 6 elements of the chain of transmission. This chain of transmission was given by the Ottawa School of Public Health, and the Ottawa Charter of Public Health was, they made this understanding about chain of transmission and the understanding about cutting the chain of transmission. So if you are PG aspirant, if you are preparing for PG entrance exam, remember these 6 interventions which can happen in this chain of transmission. 6 components are there. If you are a UG student, you need to understand the concept. Next in line. So how do you want to prevent the agent to host interaction? You prevent the agent to host interaction by breaking the chain of transmission. Can you read this line? Breaking the chain of transmission. How do you break the chain of transmission? Super duper easy. Like in practically, it's not at all easy. For your MCQ exams, it's super duper easy concept. You stop the infectious agent, you do disinfection of the area, sterilization, use antimicrobial. That's what we tried to do in COVID. It did not work. Then you stop the reservoir. You ask the bat to go back. You ask the pangolin to go back. It did not work. Engineering measures, food storage, hygiene, better hygiene we do. What we can do is, thus you stop the portal of exit, that is the hand hygiene or the waste should be disposed of. That is what we made the portal of exit. Who was making COVID-19 spread? Actually, COVID-19, I am giving a lot of example because it is one of the things which has happened in public health, and I can explain you every concept in public health using COVID-19. So you stop the portal of exit. That means you do case isolations. If the case was the person who was infected, that is the source, you isolate that. So you stop that. That could be like case isolation, could be reservoir, or it could be the portal of exit. And then you stop, you can even stop the mode of transmission by environmental sanitation, hand hygiene, PPE, use of personal protective equipments, disinfection, or you stop the portal of entry to the persons. Again, you do hand hygiene, you use the PPEs, or you stop the susceptible host. This is where the whole game changed in COVID-19. We made the people susceptible host as one of the intervention. How do you stop a susceptible host as being susceptible? You give them more vaccines, you give them more nutrition, you give them management of risk factors, you stay indoors. This is what actually helped in COVID-19 susceptible host. There are different levels where you can break the chain. Either you break at the infectious agent or reservoir, portal of exit, mode of transmission, or the portal of entry. Which is the weakest link where you can actually attack in most of the diseases? We can attack at the mode of transmission. This is known as the MCQ beta. This is known as the weakest link. It is called as the weakest link. That is what is the mode of transmission. And so with this understanding, we are going to take a break from this module. In the next module, we are going to talk about the agent factors, host factors. We will talk much in detail about the modes of transmission. See you in the next module. Thank you.
Hi guys, please subscribe my channels.